Anyway, this is my book. I published it 20 years ago, and it's a bestseller again on Islam. Now, this is a map. The red is the Roman Empire, and the white is Christianity. And see how it spreads all the way through the Middle East and over to northern India and Persia, and even to China with the Tang Dynasty, up into Europe, Britain, and then it's going to jump over with Patrick into Ireland, coming in the 400s, and there we go. And then North Africa is all Christian, and look down there. And then when we get up to around the year 622, something happens green. What is that? Whoa, oh, conquering all of that. Well, that is Islam. So we see these headlines of Christians being killed and genocides, and we see churches burning in Europe, and apologists say that if you're concerned about this, you're guilty of bigotry, spreading a Sharia hoax, or conspiracy. They assume that, they assure us that terrorism does not represent true Islam. But the terrorists are often yelling Allahu Akbar, and they claim they do represent true Islam. Well, who can tell us what true Islam is? One person, Muhammad. He's the best Muslim that ever lived. His life is called the Sunnah, the way or the example, and it went through 3 stages, and you cannot understand what is going on today unless you understand these 3 stages. He was a religious leader, then a political leader, then a military leader. And so this is the world. Before Muhammad, you have the Byzantine Christian Roman Empire, and see it goes all the way through the Middle East, and then you have the Persian Empire, that is today Iran, and it is Zoroastrian. And they beat each other up for centuries, and they leave a power vacuum. And into that comes Islam. So Muhammad's father dies before he's born. His mother dies when he's 6. His grandfather and guardian dies when he's 8. He's orphaned, taken in by an uncle, Abu Talib. And he's a merchant who takes Muhammad on camel rides, and he hears about different religions. And so one religion was Manichaeism. See the word Mani, M-A-N-I? And this Mani person said that there's little bits of truth in every religion. And so Muhammad would have heard about this. And then there's the Persian Zoroastrian religion that believed paradise was filled full of virgins that would fulfill all the guy's desires. Muhammad heard this, and it got incorporated into his belief system. They also believed in jinns or genies, like 1001 Arabian Nights. And then the pagans in Arabia had a square building called the Kaaba that housed 360 different pagan gods. And the most popular was Hubal, the moon god. And their calendar began with the first sight of the crescent moon over the desert. And they had a rock they thought had fallen from the moon. Now, even in the book of Judges, it talks about Zeba Zalmunna, and they took away the crescent moon, half moon ornaments that were around their necks. Most of the pagan cultures had a female deity and a male deity associated with the sun or the moon. And so they had a rock they thought had fallen from the moon. It's a glass impact rock where a meteor hit the hot desert sand. And well, these pagans kissed this rock, walk around it, and Muhammad kissed this rock, and it got incorporated into his belief system. There were the Sabaeans down in Yemen, and they were into ritual washings and so forth. And then Muhammad could not read. The word Quran means recitation. It's an oral thing. The Jews and Christians were called people of the book. So Muhammad never read the Old Testament, but he heard their oral stories called Talmud and Mishnah. And some of those stories got incorporated into his belief system. He originally had his followers bowing toward Jerusalem for the first 17 months. And then Encyclopedia Britannica says the gospel was known to Muhammad chiefly through apocryphal and heretical sources. So what's apocryphal? Well, the infancy gospel of Thomas, written several centuries after Jesus by someone who knew nothing of Jewish life. It's filled full of so many errors that no scholar takes it serious. Little Harry Potter type stories that Jesus made clay birds and clapped and they flew away, raised a playmate from the dead, spoke from the cradle. There's no place in ancient history that these stories appear other than this infancy gospel that nobody takes serious. Well, Muhammad heard these stories and they got incorporated into Islam. They take them now as fact. And Muhammad thought the Trinity was the Father, Mary, and Jesus. Nobody ever explained to him the Holy Spirit. And then you have a movement started by St. Anthony of the Desert of monasticism, where holy men would live in caves as hermits, and Muhammad heard about this, and I'll tell you a little bit more. One hermit was St. Benedict. He established the rule of Benedict, which was praying at set times of the day. So Muhammad heard about this, praying at set times of the day. So he's 25 years old in 595 AD, and he marries a wealthy widow, Khadijah. She's 40 years old. And so now he doesn't have to work, and he goes out to a cave and prays. and a spirit appears to him and commands him to read. He said, I cannot read. Spirit appears to him a second time, said, read. He said, I cannot read. Happens a third time. And then it squeezed him and he began to recite. And that's how the Quran came to Muhammad. He'd get these verses, he would repeat them till he had it memorized. And you think, well, how can somebody that's illiterate memorize all these verses? Well, in Arabic, they had a little rhyme to them, a little beat, very similar to rap music. So maybe there's a student that can't read, but they memorize rap songs. Thomas Carlyle wrote, Arabs see more method in it than we. Much of it is rhythmic, a kind of wild chanting. And so he goes back to his wife, Khadijah, and he tells her that he thinks he's demon-possessed. In Ibn Ishaq's Sirat Rasul Allah, the first biography of Muhammad, I thought, woe is me, poet or possessed? And so Khadijah, his wife, decides to test the spirit. And according to Ibn Ishaq's Life of Muhammad, Khadijah said to the Apostle Allah, are you able to tell me about the visitant when he comes to you? So when Jibreel, the spirit, came, the apostle said to Khadijah, this is Jibreel who has just come to me. Get up, O son of my uncle, she said, and sit on my left thigh. The apostle did so, and she said, can you see him? Yes, he said. Then turn around, sit on my right thigh. He said, can you see him? And when he said he could, she asked him to sit in her lap, and she again asked if he could see him. And when he said yes, she disclosed her form and cast aside her veil while the apostle was sitting in her lap. And she said, can you see him? And he replied, no. And she said, be of good heart, oh, by Allah, he is an angel and not a Satan. That was the test that Muhammad used to decide if this spirit appearing to him was from God or not. Now, the Bible has a test, 1 John 4. Every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of Antichrist. And Muhammad couldn't read the New Testament. He couldn't read 2 Corinthians 11:14. Even Satan can disguise himself to look like an angel of light. Or Galatians 1:8. Though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed. So Muhammad could never read the New Testament anyway. So Khadijah, the wife, takes Muhammad to her cousin, Waraq ibn Naufal, who's a follower of a heretical sect of Ebionites that said Jesus was less than God, a created being. And he said, maybe this is the spirit that appeared to Moses. And then the cousin dies, and Muhammad's left with this spirit. And in 610 AD, he goes into the city of Mecca, and he feels like there's something in his religion for everybody, right? The Manichaeism, there's something for the Jews, something for the Christians, something for the pagans, something for the Zoroastrians, and nobody likes it. And so he only makes 70 converts, gets confrontational, and when his uncle protector, Abu Talib, dies, and his wife dies, that's when the people of Mecca decide to chase Muhammad out of town. And he flees to Al-Taif. They don't want him. They pelt him with rocks and stones. So in 622 AD, he goes north to a Jewish city called Medina. And there are 3 Jewish tribes or clans. They call them Banu, is the word for clan, that are there. So these are Jewish clans that do not like each other. They have intertribal warfare. Banu Qurayza, Banu Nadir, Banu Qurayza, but they let Muhammad in as the first ever Muslim immigrant. And Muhammad goes into the minority neighborhoods, and he begins to organize a following, an ummah, a community. And when his following is big enough, he gets involved in politics. And he pressures the Jews to a treaty. And so now Muhammad is a political leader in addition to being a religious leader. And then his followers get confrontational. They get chased out of Mecca. And now there's lots of Muslim immigrants coming into Medina. And Muhammad allows them to rob the caravans headed to Mecca in retaliation for the Meccans chasing them out of town. And so where Jesus said, if they take your coat, give them your shirt, his attitude was victimhood. We're the victims of Mecca's intolerance. Therefore, we are justified in attacking the caravans that are going back to Mecca. So where Jesus said, if they take your coat, give them your shirt, Muhammad is, if they take your house, you retaliate, take their caravan. And so victimhood went into the DNA of Islam. And it's where the victim is at fault for attracting hostility. And so Sigmund Freud called it psychological projection, where they accuse you of what they're guilty of. And so claiming victimhood and being offended gave them an excuse to attack the caravans headed to Mecca. And so in the hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari, Muhammad said, the person who participates in holy battles in Allah's cause will be recompensed by Allah either by a reward or booty if he survives, or will be admitted to paradise if he is killed. And then, Surah 33:50, Prophet, we have made lawful to you the slave girls who Allah has given you as booty. So you can attack a caravan and come away with extra women. When the messenger of Allah sent out a raiding party, he would say, make your raids in the name of Allah, fight whoever denies Allah, do not steal from the booty. Why? Because Surah 8:41, whatever you take as spoils of war, lo, a fifth thereof is for Allah and for the messenger. So Muhammad got a fifth of the booty from robbing caravans. And so he told his jihad fighters that they get 4 wives plus as many extra women as they take in battle, as many as your right hand possesses, slave wives, concubines, and so forth. So 624 AD, the Meccans send 1,000 soldiers to protect their caravan, and Muhammad with 300 defeats 1,000 at the Battle of Badra, and 624 AD. So this amazing victory, outnumbered 3-1, convinces Muhammad to be a military leader, and he fights in 66 battles and raids, killing an estimated 3,000 people in the next 8 years before he dies. And so he goes from being a religious leader to a political leader to a military leader. So there's freedom for all religions in America. But Islam is not just a religion, because Muhammad was not just a religious leader. He was also a political leader and a military leader. So a mosque is a religious building, a political building, and a military building. Bowing to Mecca is a religious bowing and a political military pledging of allegiance to another capital. It's a whole different system. It's like if a gang comes in and like an MS-13 and they decide they want to take over a neighborhood, they have their laws and their rules. So 624, there's some more raids and more battles. 625, more raids and battles, and 626. And then 627 is the Battle of the Trench. And the Meccans send 10,000 soldiers to Medina, and Muhammad digs trenches all around the city, which renders the cavalry of the Meccans useless. You can't charge your horse across a field full of potholes and trenches, they'll break their legs. So Muhammad goes to some of the Meccans at night, bribes them, they slip away. Some of the other Meccans at night, threatens them, they slip away, sort of the bribe or the bullet. And then it gets freezing cold for a week, and the rest of the Meccans lose heart and retreat. And Muhammad considers this a victory that his enemies were cowards and unable to subdue him. And then he has some more battles at Khaybar and attacks and so forth. And, but what happened to those 3 Jewish clans that let Muhammad in? Well, the Banu Qaynuqa, Muhammad accused them of violating the treaty, declared it void, and expelled them. The other 2 clans stood back because they didn't like that. They had Trump derangement syndrome. They're like, I hate that clan. They had it coming to them, right? And so now there's only 2 Jewish clans. And so then Muhammad accuses the second one of violating their treaty and voids it and expels them. And the big Jewish clan stands back. They were always competition for me. I just hate them. And now there's only 1 Jewish clan. And by the way, it went into the DNA of Islam. It's called hudna, when weak make treaties until you get strong enough to disregard them. We're seeing that we're trying to make a treaty with Iran right now, and it's really hard to pin them down. That's because of this. The last Jewish tribe, the Banu Qurayza. The Sahih al-Bukhari, when Allah's apostle returned on the day of Battle of the Trench, he put down his arms and took a bath. Then Jibreel, that spirit whose head was covered with dust, came to him saying, you have put down your arms. By Allah, I have not put down my arms yet. Allah's apostle said, where go now? The Jibreel said, this way, pointing toward the tribe, the Banu Qurayza, the last Jewish tribe. And so the Bukhari says, Said said, I judge that their warriors should be killed and the children and women should be taken as captives. The prophet said, you have given a judgment similar to Allah's. So they surround him for 25 days. When the last Jewish tribe surrenders, he brings them into the market and removes their head. My wife's always telling me, don't get into the gross stuff. Anyway, so within 5 years of Muhammad coming as an immigrant into the Jewish city of Medina, there's not a